Part 48. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 471. Xiaopinggan, whose stomach was rumbling, put on his weapon, got dressed, left the apartment through the escape ladder, and came to the alley behind the apartment. Walking out of the alley, turning around a street, the restaurant where we had lunch appeared in front of us. It was already sunset in Paris, and the sky was gradually getting dark. There were even fewer pedestrians on the street. Not a single street light was on. There seemed to be not many places in the city that could still maintain power supply. From time to time, you could hear other voices in the city. Gunshots rang out everywhere. The neon sign at the entrance of the restaurant is even more dazzling. There were several cars parked at the entrance of the restaurant, and those cars were not there before. When Xiaopinggan came to the door of the restaurant again, the bodyguards at the door of the restaurant were shocked when they saw Xiaopinggan appear again. Naturally, they all remembered Xiaopinggan. Even those they didn't know before, they knew each other later. They all stared at each other. Looking at Xiaopinggan, I didn't expect that Xiaopinggan would come to the restaurant for dinner. The two bodyguards were even a little nervous. They didn't know what Xiaopinggan wanted to do. One hand had already touched the safety of the weapon he was carrying. After all, a few hours ago, Xiaopinggan killed 13 members of the BG gang outside their restaurant. The bodyguards in the restaurant all recognized Xiaopinggan as a top killer. Xiaopinggan didn't seem to notice the nervous expressions of the bodyguards. He still took out a gold watch as before and handed it to the waiter at the door of the restaurant, who looked at him and swallowed his saliva nervously. According to the value of this watch, give it to me a high-calorie meal. Seeing that Xiaopinggan was here for dinner, the waiter and the bodyguards around him breathed a sigh of relief. Okay, sir, please follow me. As soon as Xiaopinggan entered the restaurant, a bodyguard outside immediately took out a walkie-talkie and informed the restaurant that the black-haired killer was here again. Entering the restaurant, the aroma of French cuisine is everywhere in the restaurant. There are more people in the restaurant at this time than when Xiaopinggan came before. No matter how chaotic the city is, no matter how many people don't have enough to eat in a day, this time in a city, there are always people who can live a good life, and there are always people who have more resources and can come here to enjoy a good meal calmly. After walking a few steps into the restaurant, another waiter wearing a vest and shirt came up to him and winked at the waiter who brought Xiaopinggan in. Bernard, please leave this gentleman to me. This gentleman's dinner, it will be sent to Hall 6 later. Okay. The new waiter did not take Xiaopinggan to the crowded hall. Instead, he took Xiaopinggan through a corridor in the restaurant and came to a more quiet and high-end private room. Not long after Xiaopinggan sat down, the appetizer came, which was French oysters with mayonnaise. The waiter also brought a bottle of red wine. He opened the red wine in front of Xiaopinggan, poured it into a wine dispenser, and served him next to him. Gently shake the wine divider to sober up the wine, sir. This is a red wine from a Bordeaux first-class chateau given to you by our restaurant manager. You can enjoy it here tonight. Oh, thank you. This is the reason why wolves eat meat in the world. A capable person, even if he is a killer, will be respected wherever he goes. After finishing the appetizer, there was soup, the side dish was snails, the main dish was a large portion of steak, then sorbet, vegetables, desserts, and coffee. It was very rich. Enjoying these delicacies and drinking wine, Xiaopinggan found that his body became active again. The slave soldier world pearl, which was not stable before, gradually stabilized. The black dragon world pearl sensing became clearer, and the world pearl became more and more clear. The stability of the beads comes with a stable supply of divine power. After drinking red wine, there is no feeling of drunkenness. Instead, it is quickly absorbed and decomposed by the body. After Xiaopinggan drank a bottle of red wine, he only felt his face was slightly hot and his mind was very clear. The more he drank, the more energetic he became. This meal was more substantial than the previous one. The meal lasted for more than an hour, until all the dinner was finished. The waiter removed the tableware. Then, the door of the private room opened. The restaurant manager whom he had met before walked into the private room with a smile. 2 bodyguards stood at the door. "Close the door. Sir, I think we can officially get to know each other now. I am the manager of the Chez Terroir restaurant. My name is Gabriel. The Chez Terroir restaurant and I both belong to the Paris Popular Front, the largest autonomous organization in several nearby districts. I don't know this. What do you call me, sir? This restaurant can still do business in Paris at this time, and it really has a background." Xiaoping said calmly. "You can call me Luoan," Xiaopinggan replied. "Mr. Luoan, can we sit down and chat?" "Please sit down." Gabriel then sat directly next to Xiaopinggan and spread his hands. "Mr. Luoan, you should be able to feel that we have no ill intentions towards you. This should be the prerequisite for us to communicate. The wine you gave me is very good. If you have anything to say, you can just say it." Gabrielle squinted her eyes and looked at Xiaopinggan's face. "Please forgive me for asking, Mr. Luoan, are you a professional killer?" Xiaopinggan smiled slightly. "Well, that's right. I usually don't kill people, but sometimes I have to send some garbage to meet God. Those people from the BG gang have gone crazy and are looking for you everywhere this afternoon. I think you should know, right?" "Well, I know, if they don't find me, then they are really crazy. I want to make a deal with you, Mr. Luoan." "Oh, what deal?" "The boss of the BG gang is called Ernie. He is a complete scum of society. He rapes, robs, takes drugs, kills, and uses bloody methods to control and coerce the women he kidnaps into prostitution. He does all kinds of evil. If you can kill him, we will give you a chance. An objective remuneration will allow you to live a leisurely life in Paris for a long time," Gabriel said directly, tapping the table with his hand. "Wearing a big gold ring, I believe this is good for you. It should be an acceptable mission. Now the BG gang has issued a pursuit order for you. As long as Ernie dies, the BG gang will be torn apart, and the threat this gang poses to you will be lifted, which is beneficial to both of us. Is it you or the organization behind you that wants Ernie's life?" "What difference does it make?" Gabrielle shook her head and sighed. "BG gang controls a territory, and those gang members don't follow the rules. They multiply in the city like cancer cells and bedbugs in the sewer, causing misfortune and chaos. It is the destabilizing factor in the city, and we at the People's Front hope that the city can return to normality and order as soon as possible, with less garbage like the BG gang and Ernie. Have you ever thought about killing him before?" "I've thought about it, but it's not easy. Although Ernie is a scumbag, he is very nervous about his own life. It is not easy to find opportunities to take action, and the BG gang is not the only one in the city. Cancer cells, there are many cancer cells in the city, and the cancer cells are still connected to each other. Do you understand what I mean? If our people kill Ernie, it will start a gang war and cause a big chaos. If someone else kills him, it has nothing to do with us. We can safely take over the territory of the BG gang, and you happen to have such abilities and are sworn enemies of the BG gang, so you are the best candidate." Xiaopinggan understood. It turned out that this was a battle between gangs. Gabriel wanted to find himself a killer, so that he and the organization behind him would not have to take responsibility, and the BG gang also had close ties with other gangs. There is indeed a good reason for them to take action against themselves. Other cancer cells related to the BG gang are currently attacking the Chinese community in Paris and want to stage a robbery and massacre in the 11th arrondissement. We have just received news that Ernie has been persuaded and the BG gang may send people to participate. During the battle in District 11, provide material support to other gangs in District 11 attacking the Chinese community. If Ernie dies, it will also be good news for District 11. Mr. Luohan should have people he knows and friends in District 11. Gabrielle said again. It has to be said that this Gabriel is very good at manipulating people's hearts. In addition to interests, he directly brought out Xiaoping's racial stance. It seemed that Xiaoping's refusal to take this job was like betraying his own skin color. Xiaoping glanced at Gabrielle and pondered for a moment, how much money are you prepared to pay for me to do this? 2 kilograms of gold bars should be enough. Gold is the most useful thing in Paris right now. As long as we confirm Ernie's death, you can come to the restaurant and take away 2 kilograms of gold at any time. 2 kilograms of gold is indeed a lot. With this gold, I should be able to complete the spiritual body fusion safely. More importantly, the BG gang is already fighting with me to death. Even without this gold, I can't. I plan to continue harvesting the garbage from the BG gang, so this is incidental. Okay, I'll take this job, Xiaoping nodded. An eager smile appeared on Gabriel's face. He reached into his suit pocket and took out a photo and placed it in front of Xiaoping. This person is Ernie. He usually lives at the BG gang's residence. There are many bodyguards, cunning and fierce. Xiaoping looked at the photo on the table. The person in the photo was a man standing in front of a black car. The man was bald and strong. There were stripes on his neck, the left side of his face, and his bright head. The snake-shaped tattoo is extremely dazzling. The bald man's eyes are a little red, and he has a nose ring on his nostrils. His whole body is full of violent aura. He is not a good person at first glance. Xiaoping put away the photos, and then asked casually, is there any powerful character around this Ernie? Gabrielle lowered her voice for a moment, with a solemn look on her face. As far as we know, there is a bodyguard beside Ernie, named Seiren. He may have fused 2 world beads. He has very strong abilities, and a long distance the summoner is only 1 step away. That person is very difficult to deal with. 2 world beads. Yes, so the BG gang has been looking for boundary beads everywhere recently, hoping to make Seiren a summoner. Okay, I know. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 472. Golden Summoner. When Xiaoping left the Chez Terroir restaurant, it was completely dark outside. The whole of Paris was shrouded in darkness. At this time, the pedestrians on the street could hardly be seen. In the quiet night, the sound echoed in the city. The sound of gunfire is even more harsh and will make people gradually numb. In the southeast, the gunfire seemed to be more intense, as if in a battle, and the sky was illuminated red by the firelight on the ground. It was flashing in the direction of the 11th arrondissement of Paris, the Avenue de la République and the Avenue Voltaire. According to Gabrielle, it was Paris gangs taking advantage of the darkness to attack the Chinese community in the 11th arrondissement. Xiaoping squinted his eyes for a moment, then pulled up the collar of his windbreaker and quickly disappeared into the darkness. As his strength gradually recovered, after eating this big meal, Xiaoping felt that his divine power seemed to be more stable. The summoner's dark vision gradually recovered, so the dark streets had nothing to him. Obstructed, he could already clearly see the things hidden in the dark streets. The sewage on the ground, the wandering wildcats, the ruins after the chaos, and the various people who quietly appeared in the dark streets and alleys, such as gangsters, drug dealers. There are also women who rely on their bodies for food. There was a hint of chill in the night wind, but the women were shivering while exposing their pale thighs, backs, or chests, waiting for customers to come. Xiaoping heard those women and men bargaining. 2 pieces of bread and a few cigarettes can complete a transaction. If you can have a box of foundation or perfume and cosmetics, you can come many times. Due to the lack of supplies, many women wore plain makeup, and some even wore no makeup at all. A woman who could wear heavy makeup at this time must be extraordinary in Paris. Xiaoping walked through the dark streets and alleys, avoiding those who did not want to meet, and prepared to return to the small hotel. Although the small hotel is very simple, it is a civilian area and is relatively peaceful. It is protected by the security team and the people from the BG gang cannot enter there. Probably no one would have thought that a killer would live in such a place. The hotel owner, Garcia, was sitting at the door of the crowded hotel with a dull look on his face, looking listless and blaming himself with annoyance on his face. That guy must have run away. How could I believe him? What he had in the room, how much money can it be worth? It's just a pile of junk. Have painters become liars? While Garcia was blaming himself, with the help of a little light from the door of the hotel, he saw Xiaopingan, wearing a black windbreaker, walking from the street outside the door. His steps were steady but nimble. Garcia almost jumped at once. "Stand up! Are you back?" Garcia suddenly approached Xiaopingan, his eyes flashed, and his nose sniffed Xiaopingan, his eyes suddenly full of doubts. "You have, butter bacon on you taste, have you made money? This guy's dog nose is really smart." Xiaopingan nodded seriously. "I found a job in a restaurant and made a little money," Xiaopingan said, reaching into his pocket, taking out 200 euros, and handed it to the hotel owner Garcia. "Pay back a little rent first, and then I'll pay it back to you slowly after I work part-time." At the moment, the euro is no longer easy to use in Paris, but it's not that it can't be used, it's just that its value has been greatly reduced. Many things that could be bought for 10 euros may now cost dozens of euros. The euro is not easy to use in Paris. But in many places outside Paris, the euro is already available, which creates arbitrage space for many well-connected people. Xiaopingan's money can actually pay off all the house payments easily. However, this is too suspicious. How can an ordinary person earn so much money by just hanging out for a day? So, 200 euro is a number that can satisfy the hotel owner without causing unnecessary complications. Garcia took the money handed over by Xiaopingan, squinted and carefully examined the money under the lamp. He found that it was not a counterfeit bill. There was finally a smile on his face. He didn't even notice that the buttons of Xiaopingan's windbreaker were almost all of them were buttoned up, so naturally they didn't expect that Xiaopingan's windbreaker contained a tactical vest and long and short weapons. Garcia put the money into his pocket, quickly suppressed the smile on his face, and said with a straight face, "Ahem, this money is far from enough. Do you still have to give me almost 2,600 euros, pay off your house payment?" "I'll pay you back while I'm making money," Xiaopingan smiled. "I can always pay it back. Don't forget that there is a new house payment, I will calculate it for you." "Okay, no problem. Can you turn on the water pipes today? I want to take a shower." When he heard that Xiaopingan wanted to take a bath, Garcia's eyebrows suddenly stood up, and his voice suddenly rose several dimensions. "You still want to take a bath? Do you know how expensive the water in this civilian area is?" "I know, you should put it in the account first. I have been working all day and I am sweating profusely. If I am still like this tomorrow, I may not be able to work in the restaurant for a long time. You know, the restaurant needs us to be clean and decent. I am unemployed. If I don't, I can't pay you the rent." Garcia's expression changed, and he finally nodded. "I'll turn on the water pipe for you, just for 10 minutes, and then I'll put 10 euros on your account." "Okay," Xiaopingan nodded, then went upstairs, unlocked his room door, and entered the room. Before leaving the room, Xiaopingan made a small arrangement on the floor of the room. When he came back this time, he found that the arrangement was still intact, which meant that no one had entered the room after he left, and it was considered safe. After Xiaopingan took off his clothes, he entered the bathroom and knocked on the water pipe with an empty wine bottle. Garcia finally opened the faucet below and shouted, 10 minutes, I'll mark the time for you." Not even a second longer. Water finally came from the shower in the bathroom. Although it was cold water, It was refreshing. Xiaopinggan washed away the dirt all over his body in the water, and took 9 minutes to finish the shower. The water droplets in the shower in the bathroom really turned off on time 2 seconds early at 10 minutes. Not even a second more. "I'll go." Grandet shed tears when he saw the innkeeper. Xiaopinggan wiped off the water droplets on his body, returned to the room, found some clothes and put them on again. Although Luoan was down and out, he was still a bit misophobic. The clothes in his wardrobe were all very clean and smelled of camphor. After getting dressed, Xiaopinggan put the gun next to his pillow and fell asleep quietly. The night was silent except for the sound of gunfire. Early the next morning, before dawn, Xiaopinggan was woken up again by Gililu's hungry stomach. After a night's rest, Xiaopinggan woke up and felt the secret mandala. The Black Dragon World Pearl had been stabilized, and the Luoyang World Pearl was almost ready for use. The amount of divine power that could be used had reached about 150 points. His overall strength compared with yesterday, it is indeed much stronger. I can no longer stay in this small hotel. If I live here, if something happens to me, I will return to the immortal city. This body will sleep here for 2 or 3 days. It is too unsafe. Maybe the hotel owner will take this body and bury it alive. Or be cremated. In this small hotel, just a few gangsters can break in and cause trouble for themselves. Therefore, after yesterday's groping and tossing, and after accumulating a little wealth, Xiaopinggan is going to find a safe place to stay in Paris today, in case he suddenly leaves for something. There is no safe resettlement place, and it has been ruined by others. After getting up, Xiaopinggan got dressed, washed and prepared, put on a black painter's hat, put 3,000 euros in cash on the table in the room, and then left the small hotel. As long as I don't come back for 3 days, the owner of this hotel will definitely open the door to the room. As for the BG gang, which is like an ant, Xiaopinggan is not in a hurry. He will wait until he settles down first. Luoan has a lot of available information in his head. He studied painting in Paris before, and also worked as a tutor and painting teacher for some wealthy families. He worked in many places in Paris, such as the Louvre in the city center and near Notre Dame Cathedral. There are also villas in the countryside on the outskirts of Paris. In order to avoid space invasion, some wealthy people often build shelters and safe houses in the basements of villas. Some shelters and safe houses have a very high security level and can even withstand the impact of nuclear bombs. If you can find one like this, once the villa settles, the problem of where this clone will settle is solved. According to the information in Roan's head, there really is such a villa. The villa is a little far away from here, in Purifit on the banks of the Seine. The owners of the villa are a wealthy and elderly French couple. They also have a daughter. Luoan was their daughter's art teacher before, and he also visited the underground safe house and wine cellar of the villa, so he was very impressed. When Xiaopinggan left the hotel owner Garcia was still sleeping soundly in his room. His snoring could be heard at the door, so there was no need to mutter any more. It's not yet dawn, but people in the civilian areas are already getting up and starting to work, and some shops are already preparing to open. Xiaopinggan touched his stomach. He was too hungry, so he first found a reliable bakery to eat something to replenish his energy. An hour later, Xiaopinggan paid 60 euros, had a breakfast of butter almond bread in a bakery, drank a bottle of milk, and then walked out of the bakery. At this time, the sky was completely bright and there were more pedestrians on the street. Just more than 100 meters out of the breakfast shop, the roar of motorcycles came from the street behind me. 3 motorcycles drove slowly from behind Xiaopinggan and drove past Xiaopinggan. On the 3 motorcycles, there were people on each vehicle. 2 people, one rider riding a motorcycle and the other sitting on the back seat of the motorcycle, held weapons in their hands and kept scanning the pedestrians on the street. The men on the motorcycle were dressed in the same style as the BG gang. All 6 of them were black, similar to the 3 black gangsters who robbed Xiaopingan yesterday. Because Xiaopingan was wearing a hat to cover his black hair, when the 3 motorcycles passed behind Xiaopingan, they did not notice anything unusual about Xiaopingan. It was just that when the 3 motorcycles passed Xiaopingan, one of the motorcycles, a gang member sitting in the back of the car, turned his head and glanced at Xiaopingan, and then was stunned for a moment. Xiaopingan's Chinese face is too obvious. "Hi, kid." The 2 sides looked at each other, and the gang member's face changed slightly, and he shouted. He already felt something, and instinctively wanted to point a gun at Xiaopingan. However, Xiaopingan was faster. When he saw the 3 motorcycles, Xiaopingan was already ready. Before the gangster could turn his gun, Xiaopingan raised his hand and revealed the gun hidden in his windbreaker. HK-416C immediately leveled up and aimed at the 6 gangsters in front. Half the bullets were fired in the blink of an eye. The 6 gangsters on the 3 motorcycles fell into a pool of blood in an instant before they had time to react. All the bullets were fired from behind. The motorcycle suddenly slipped to the ground. Gunshots rang out on the street, and people around them fled in panic. Xiaopingan quickly ran over, searched the 6 guys, took out a few magazines, a gold watch, and a chain, made another small fortune, and then killed 2 people who had fallen to the ground on a motorcycle. He kicked the gangster's body away, picked up the motorcycle and put on a helmet. He raised the gun again, ta-da-da-da-da, and blew up the fuel tanks of the other 2 motorcycles. At the moment when the flames started to rise on the street, Xiaopingan got on his motorcycle, turned the accelerator, and spun in a circle. The motorcycle roared, and his black windbreaker drew wings like lines in the air. It was so chic that it disappeared in the blink of an eye. Without a trace. More than 10 minutes later, a large number of BG gang members rushed here. More than 7 or 8 cars, more than a dozen motorcycles, and several pickup trucks were filled with people, all holding weapons, murderous and red-eyed. "Find me that bastard." The leader of the BG gang with a big gold chain around his neck and dreadlocks roared angrily, "I'm going to eat him bit by bit." In 2 days, the BG gang suffered heavy losses at the hands of Xiaopingan. A black-haired boy appeared from nowhere and was thrown into disarray. So many people died that the entire BG gang was shocked. Going crazy. If the black-haired boy is not caught and executed with the most cruel means, the authority of the BG gang in this area will definitely disappear. Others will think that the BG gang is weak, and the survival of the BG gang will definitely face a huge threat. There will definitely be more and more people and forces who want to challenge the BG gang, want to cut something from the BG gang, and take away something. This is the survival rule of gangs in this urban jungle. When encountering such, if you can't give a strong response to provocation, then it's really over. Chateroy restaurant. Manager, news just came from outside. The black-haired boy from the BG gang killed 6 more people on Mento Street just now. The man also robbed one of the BG gang's motorcycles. The BG gang has offered a reward of 2 million euros. I want that person's head. 2 million euros, Gabrielle, smoking a cigar, laughed while sitting behind the executive desk. Those crazy dogs from the BG gang are really going crazy this time. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 473. Pierre Fight is the name of a neighborhood in Paris. There is also a Pierre Fight in the Saint-Denis department. The 2 names have the same name, but they refer to different places. Riding a motorcycle in Paris at this time is too eye-catching. It is no less eye-catching than driving a supercar in the city. Moreover, it will be even more troublesome if there is positioning on the motorcycle. Therefore, when he was still 4 or 5 kilometers away from Pierre Fight, Xiaopinggan parked his motorcycle behind a flower bed in a lively street park, left the keys in the car, and walked to Pierre Fight. Special. The journey went smoothly without any further problems. About 40 minutes later, Xiaopinggan arrived at Pierre Fight. This is a wealthy area of Paris. This neighborhood is close to the Seine River. There is an iron arch bridge nearby and a large number of villas are located here. In this era, the wealthy people who built villas here, in order to resist the invasion of space, compromised the beauty of the villas with the functionality. Therefore, the villas in Pierre Fight are like small castles with pointed roofs. Below, there are solid walls built of granite, reinforced concrete, and steel structures everywhere. On those walls, the window area is compressed as much as possible. The walls outside the villa are at least 3 or 4 meters high and are very solid. In order to beautify the villas, the walls of many villas are covered with plants such as perfumed jasmine, coral vine, and parsley. Large expanses of green hang down from the walls of the villas. The blooming flowers make those hard buildings suddenly it becomes softer. In addition to these plants, beautiful and elegant wrought iron gates and fences, and some conspicuous sculptures have also become the exterior decorations of these solid villas. Some villas have been damaged. Xiaopinggan saw that there was an area where the villas within 50 meters had disappeared. There were ruins nearby. There was a large crater on the ground. Some villas had collapsed. There were some signs of excessive fire, but there were also some villas are still occupied by people. Walking in such a neighborhood, Xiaopinggan could clearly feel pairs of eyes staring at him from the windows of the surrounding villas where people lived, a little wary. Xiaopinggan was wearing a hat, and the collar of his windbreaker was turned up to cover his neck and half of his face. Those who were staring at him in the villa could not see his appearance clearly. It should be here. Finally, Xiaopinggan came to the castle-like villa in his image. Everything in front of me is still the same as in my memory. There are 2 marble sculptures in front of the villa. The brown-gray iron gate is tightly closed. Outside the villa's gate is an avenue full of sycamore trees. Farther away, there are a small pier. The Seine River flows calmly more than 200 meters away, and turns into a huge river bend. Through the gap in the gate, you can see the yard inside filled with flowers and plants. Seeing that the villa in front of him didn't look deserted, Xiaopinggan felt a little more at ease. You can first communicate with the owner of the villa here to see if you can buy or rent this villa. If not, you can also think of other ways. There is a doorbell at the door of the villa, and there is a hidden camera facing the door. If the Gerards still live here, they should still remember their faces. Xiaopinggan walked to the door, turned his head, faced the hidden camera, and then pressed the doorbell of the villa. There was a faint sound of ding-dong coming from the villa outside the door. Xiaopinggan pressed the button twice after 2 seconds, then did not press it again, but waited quietly outside the door. After almost 10 seconds, Xiaopinggan saw a woman with wheat-colored curly hair wearing a blue floral skirt through the crack of the door, holding a shotgun and leading a shepherd dog from the door of the villa. Out. In Luoan's memory, this woman is exactly the student Luoan once taught, the daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Gerard, named Emily. If Xiaopinggan's memory is correct, Emily seems to have just turned 19 this year. When Xiaopinggan was Emily's home painting teacher, he got along very happily with the Gerards and their family. Emily was very vigilant. After walking out of the villa, she came to the door. She just opened a small side window on the iron door and exposed half of her face inside the iron door to carefully look at Xiaopinggan outside. "Teacher Luoan, is that you?" Luoan has not taught painting here for almost 2 years. In the past 2 years, Luoan's appearance has also undergone some changes, so the woman at the door wanted to confirm. "Emily, it's me, I'm here to see you," Xiaopinggan asked. After confirming that it was Xiaopinggan, the woman inside the door seemed to be relieved. She put down the shotgun in her hand and took out a bunch of keys. "Teacher Luoan, wait a moment, I will open the door for you right now." After the sound of the door lock opening and the iron bolt sliding, the side door of the villa door was fully opened. As soon as Xiaopinggan entered the villa, Emily quickly closed the side door and locked it inside. The shepherd dog following Emily, Xiaopinggan, became excited as soon as he came in, wagging his tail, sticking out his tongue, and kept going around Xiaopinggan, making Emily afraid of patting the shepherd dog. The dog's head said, "Batu, don't move." Xiaopinggan looked at the shotgun picked up by Emily. He still remembered that this shotgun was a collection of Emily's father. There were 2 in total, and they seemed to have been placed in the closet in the small living room of the villa. "Emily, where is your father?" Xiaopinggan asked. Upon hearing this, Emily's eyes turned slightly red. "My father has passed away." "Ah, I'm sorry." Xiaopinggan looked apologetic. "I remember that your father has always been in good health, and you still want to visit today. How come?" "Teacher Luoan, let's go in and talk." Emily quickly put away her emotions, with a strong look on her face and a smile. "There is still the black tea you like to drink at home." "Okay." Xiaopinggan followed Emily into the villa. The door of the villa is just like the security door of a bank vault. It is almost a foot thick and extremely heavy. There is a flower window on both sides of the main door, but the flower window is divided into many pieces by polymer plexiglass and thick iron windows. The largest piece of each piece is only slightly larger than the mouth of the bowl. No slightly larger animal can get in. Everything is the same as 2 years ago. The villa was extremely tidy, but there was also a deserted atmosphere. Apart from Emily, there seemed to be no one else in the villa. The accident happened very suddenly, almost as soon as Xiaopinggan walked into the villa and sat down on the sofa in the living room. Emily had just made him a pot of black tea and Xiaopinggan was about to ask what happened at Emily's home. "What?" Xiaopinggan's sea of consciousness suddenly trembled violently. "Not good." Xiaopinggan's expression suddenly changed. This tremor is a warning from the secret technique of the clone. It means that the body of the original body in the underground secret room of the immortal city is trembling violently. This is the most dangerous warning. If it were not for the tortoise shell 5 elements reversed Bagua sword formation 2.0 version in the secret room, Pan has encountered a huge change. My body is in the realm of fetal breath and divine silence, and under the protection of the soul guardian barrier, such tremors and warnings will not occur at all. Could it be that someone is destroying the array and is about to invade the secret room? If my body dies, I will be in big trouble. Faced with this urgent matter, looking at Emily who had just come over with tea, Xiaopinggan didn't have time to say a word, nor did he have time to make any preparations or barriers. The spirit body directly left the body forcibly, interrupting the secret method of clone. The spirit body returns to the body of the deity as quickly as possible. In the flash of light and stone, Xiaopinggan's spirit body shook violently, just like entering a black hole through a time tunnel. Under a huge pull that made the spirit body feel a little painful, Xiaopinggan's figure had appeared in the spirit world fortress, and there was no time to explain. The next second, Xiaopinggan's spirit body passed through the arch of the fortress, and returned to the spirit world temple in his secret mandala. The next second, the spirit body is newly merged with the main body from within the spirit world temple of the secret mandala. In the secret room, Xiaopinggan, who was sitting cross-legged on the futon, suddenly opened his eyes, and his breathing and heartbeat returned to normal instantly. The entire secret room was trembling, as if a train was passing above the secret room. The loud rumbling sound echoed throughout the underground. The tortoise shell 5 elements reversed Bagua sword formation was in full operation. 6 golden turtles bloomed with a ball of golden light to protect the entire secret room, but was squeezed out of shape by a terrifying force coming from the underground. Under that huge force, cracks appeared on the shells of several golden tortoises. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 474. Xiaopinggan was also shocked by the situation in front of him. The pressure on the tortoise-shell 5 elements reversed Bagua sword formation was not caused by someone trying to break the formation, but by the huge pressure coming from the rock and soil fluctuations in the entire underground. The entire ground was shaking, and Xiaoping'an in the secret room felt like he was sitting on a giant ship traveling through a storm, and the ground around him was shaking. There was a rumbling sound all over the ground, which was very scary. It feels like the immortal city is sinking into the abyss, or a powerful summoning spell is using the kingdom of God to crush the immortal city. After only staying for a second, Xiaoping'an immediately reacted and rushed towards the ground of the secret room. Unexpectedly, the door outside the secret room seemed to be pressed down by something heavy and could not be opened. He directly summoned a giant more than 5 meters tall. The giant's whole body flashed with a layer of red light. The giant's head was almost touching the top of the secret room. As soon as the giant was summoned, he roared in the secret room and started running, causing the ground to tremble. The giant he rushed to the door of the secret room, lowered his head suddenly, and slammed the door of the secret room with both fists, all the strength of his body and the force of collision. Boom! The security door of the secret room suddenly deformed and was blasted open. The outside of the security door was covered with countless building ruins and stones, and was also blocked by a collapsed wooden beam, so it was difficult to open. The house outside the secret room had already completely collapsed and was in a mess. The giant leaned half of his body out of the safety door, jumped out of the safety door, swept away tons of rubble with one kick, and completely cleared the passage to the safety door. The ground of the entire Galaxy Manor was shaking violently. Huge stones fell from the top of the cave in the Galaxy Manor with huge destructive force, making the ground crash. Xiaoping'an immediately flew out of the secret room. The moment he flew out of the secret room, Xiaoping'an waved his hand towards the secret room and directly put away the tortoise-shell 5 elements upside-down Bagua sword formation in the secret room. Refining this formation disc is not easy. Although the formation disc in front of you is somewhat damaged, it can still be repaired. It would be a waste to throw it away. At the moment when the formation plate was retracted, the force that supported the secret chamber from deforming disappeared. The entire secret chamber was suddenly squeezed by the power coming from the surrounding ground. The alloy protective layer and stone walls of the secret chamber were instantly destroyed. Shattered, countless stones poured in from all sides of the secret room, annihilating the secret room in an instant. This situation made Xiaoping'an feel frightened. This is the most feared situation when using the secret method of clone. The spirit body is still experiencing the customs of other worlds in the clone, but the original body is suddenly destroyed in an instant under force majeure. Without the protection of the tortoise-shell 5 elements upside-down Bagua sword formation, his current true body's the meat has already been squeezed into pulp. As soon as Xiaoping'an came out of the secret room, above his head, a huge boulder as big as an ox fell directly from the cave, heading towards where Xiaoping'an was. The giant guarding Xiaoping'an roared, jumped up suddenly, and punched the boulder, directly smashing the boulder into pieces in the air, and rocks and dust fell from the air like dust. Xiaoping'an put away the giant he summoned, avoided several boulders, and quickly jumped into the air. The cave where the entire Galaxy Manor is located has begun to collapse, and the courtyards in the entire cave have all turned into ruins. Violent earthquakes were heard on the ground, just like an earthquake. The beautiful waterfalls that originally flowed down the cave of Galaxy Manor are no longer instead of water, it was blood-red hot magma. Where the magma flowed, everything that could burn on the ground burned. Xiaoping'an didn't know what happened, but the situation before him told him that if he didn't leave the cave of Galaxy Manor quickly, he might be completely buried here. In the surrounding sky, several summoners were flying quickly towards the entrance of Galaxy Manor. Xiaoping'an also rushed towards the entrance of Galaxy Manor. The entrance of Galaxy Manor, which was unusually bright before, has now collapsed in half. If he does not rush out, the entire cave where Galaxy Manor is located will completely collapse, and he will be buried alive. Previously, Galaxy Manor had exclusive access to the cave with the most unique scenery in the Immortal City, but now, this cave is on the verge of death. The sky suddenly turned black. Xiaoping'an was so stunned that his heart trembled. I went to see a huge rock 5 or 6 times larger than a football field, like a mountain, falling directly from the cave, accompanied by with the fall of this huge boulder, surrounding stones of all sizes fell from the sky like raindrops. Xiaoping'an was like a petrel flying through the storm and huge waves, passing through the bombardment of countless rocks falling from his head. Before the rocks fell to the ground, he flew out of the Galaxy Manor with a whooshing sound. Cave. But the summoner who fell behind Xiaoping'an was not so lucky. The summoner was only a few seconds late. Just before he flew out of the cave, his whole body was covered by the huge rocks falling like mountains. No, the summoner let out a desperate but futile cry, and summoned water shields on himself. However, under the terrifying power, they were still like ants under the collapse of a huge building. Unable to resist, the black shadow of the boulder suddenly fell to the cave floor. Rumble. The ground of the entire cave was shattered, and the magma flowing on the ground was thrown up into huge waves hundreds of meters high, turning into sparks all over the sky and blasting away in all directions. After a few seconds, the cave where the entire Galaxy Manor is located has completely collapsed. This scene is really terrifying. Xiaoping'an, who flew out of the cave of Xing Manor, saw the Immortal City in the air and was equally shocked. At this moment, the Immortal City was in chaos. Most of the buildings in the Immortal City were in ruins. A huge golden insect with a length of more than 300 to 400 meters, like a giant leech, appeared in the center of the Immortal City. The location, under the giant insect, was a huge cave leading to the ground. The strange insect was lying on the ground, and circles of energy fluctuations came from it. The ground of the undead city began to shake violently. The buildings on the ground collapsed one by one, and the ground around the giant insect turned into a sheet of magma. Lake, there is more and more magma. The area of the magma lake is constantly expanding. Countless magma spurts out from the underground of the Immortal City, annihilating the Immortal City. Golden bugs, bugs from the 9 Sun realm. Just one glance at the strange insect made Xiaoping'an's heart tighten. Lord of the Abyss. That's the 9th level insect king, run quickly. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 475. The Insect King, who was originally in the 9 Yang realm in the Abyss, opened a passage from the underground and came to the Immortal City. The situation in front of him allowed Xiaoping'an to figure out what happened in half a second. Xiaoping'an turned around and ran away without even thinking, quickly flying towards the outside of the Immortal City. This is not because Xiaoping'an is not brave enough, but because the level gap between the two sides is too big. The Insect King is a terrifying existence on the same level as True Lord Styx. Even if the summoner of 9 Sun realm and True Lord Styx rush towards him, he may not be the Insect King. If his opponent, a summoner of the 6 Sun realm, rushes forward to act as cannon fodder, there is really no need for him. Moreover, there are already many summoners and disciples of the 10,000 God sect besieging the Insect King. Amid the tremors that filled the city, Xiaoping'an saw Director Fu, with 7 or 8 red-robed deacons, more than a dozen black-robed disciples, and dozens of white-robed disciples flying in the air next to the Insect King. Standing, besieging the Golden Insect King. All the attack methods available to the summoner were used. Countless fireballs, arrows, and ice picks were blasting towards the Insect King like raindrops every second. Looking from a distance, there were countless colorful fireworks blooming around the Insect King every second. In addition to these spells, there are also 7 or 8 giants on the ground, various summoned monsters, giant elephants, black dragons, bone dragons, red birds, giant pythons, etc. There are also dozens of summons. Some of these summons they waved giant hammers on the ground or carried rocks and weapons as big as houses to attack the Insect King. Some sprayed clouds and mist in the air, and all the fireworks and poisonous gas bombarded the Insect King. But outside the body of the Golden Insect King, there was a circle of puffing black smoke, forming a hard armor. All attacks directed at the Insect King were hit by the black smoke, swallowed up by the black smoke, and completely invulnerable. Not as good as the King of Insects. Two giants and a black dragon that breathed poisonous smoke were rushing closer. As soon as they got close to the Insect King, they were swallowed up by the black smoke and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Manager Fu's beard was flying, and two rays of golden light shot out from his eyes for several feet. Standing in the sky above the Insect King's head, circles of brilliance bloomed from him, and above Manager Fu's head, appeared there are three horizontal lines filled with the power of heaven. Among the horizontal lines, the upper horizontal line is divided into two sections for yin, the bottom horizontal line is divided into two sections for yin, and the middle horizontal line is for yang, which is the Gan hexagram of Zongmen. Gan represents water. On the ground next to the Insect King, a piece of rippling sea water that seemed real and illusory suddenly emerged. The sea water seemed to want to annihilate the Insect King, but it met with the continuously surging and boiling magma around the Insect King on the ground. The magma cooled when it met water and turned into rock. Under the urging of the Insect King's power, the rock turned into magma again and scattered in all directions. When water meets magma, it turns into large amounts of water vapor and smoke, which spits out from the ground, reaches the sky, and directly turns into clouds and raindrops. In the center of the entire immortal city, a spectacle appeared at this moment. Magma was boiling and raging on the ground. Violent earthquake waves were razing the entire city's buildings to the ground. Even the tall buildings of the Director's Hall in the immortal city were crumbling, and in the sky, but it is raining heavily. The flaming hell and the boiling sea collide and stir here. Earthquakes and violent winds roar here. The power is really dazzling. Xiaoping'an just took a look at the battle scene over there and became more determined to leave. Among the summoners who were besieging the Insect King at this moment, almost none of them were weaker than him, and they were stronger than him in the Seven Suns realm. A lot, and his little attack power is useless. Xiaoping'an also saw Liang Tian, who was also besieging the Insect King. Liang Tian summoned a 100-meter ice cone as huge as a mountain peak, flew into the sky and let the ice cone shoot down towards Xuanhuan, but the ice cone, when it stabbed the black energy around the Insect King, it all shattered in the blink of an eye, turning into snowflakes and ice slag that exploded from the city. Not a single hair on the Insect King was lost. When the Insect King was dealing with the siege of so many summoners at the same time, he could still find time to continuously emit circles of fluctuations, destroying the immortal city. Crashing, part of the city wall outside the immortal city has begun to collapse in large areas under the impact of seismic waves and magma. Thunder. Manager Fu yelled out a word, which shook the entire immortal city. Manager Fu made a finger on his hand, and then spit out a mouthful of golden blood in the air. Just as he spurted out blood, behind him the Gan hexagram was shocked, and three horizontal lines appeared next to the Gan hexagram, like Yang Yu. This is a Zhen hexagram representing the word thunder. At this moment, two hexagrams appeared above Manager Fu's head. In the large clouds formed by water vapor above the immortal city, lightning suddenly flashed. A thick lightning, like a dazzling white beam of light, illuminated the entire underground space where the immortal city was located, and blasted towards the Insect King. This thunder and lightning beam blasted through the black air outside the Insect King's body and hit the Insect King's golden body. Suddenly, electric light shot out, and countless tiny lightning bolts sizzled like silver snakes on the Insect King's body, dancing and flying around. Ang! The Insect King seemed to be irritated, and let out a low roar, which echoed in the underground city like dull thunder. The roar reached the ears of Xiaoping'an, who had just flown to the city wall, and Xiaoping'an felt his head when I fainted. It felt as if someone had hit me on the head, and I felt a little dizzy. Xiaopingan turned his head and saw the insect king raising his head like a silkworm baby. A bright flame spit out from the insect king's mouth, like a giant sword, and sweeping across the sky like a searchlight. It was almost tens of thousands of meters long. Wherever the flames touched, the space twisted, as if invisible wrinkles had been made. 2 red-robed deacons, 3 black-robed disciples, and 7 or 8 white-robed disciples were instantly swept away by the flames. Under Xiaopingan's eyes, they turned into dust and scattered from the air. The space equipment on their bodies exploded. Things like gold coins, elixirs, world beads, and various cultivation materials fell from the sky. Except for those world beads, everything else was reduced to ashes in the flames. Some boundary beads passed through the terrifying flames without any damage, fell to the ground, sank into the rolling magma, and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. Wherever the flames hit, the building of the Director's Hall, which was a landmark building in the Immortal City, was crumbling. With a brush, it was directly broken in half, just like a bamboo shoot on the ground being chopped by a sharp sword. It collapsed and ceased to exist. The flames spit out by the insect king swept half a circle and finally hit Manager Fu, who was at the top. There was a flash of lightning in the clouds, and another bolt of lightning struck the flame. As a result, the lightning was directly blown away by the flame. The flames shot hundreds of meters in front of Director Fu, and countless huge ice shields the size of houses suddenly appeared around Director Fu's body in the sky. The ice shields were arranged in a formation and rotated rapidly. The flames hit the ice shield and the ice shield dissipated. With a bang, a series of thunders sounded in the sky. The 2 hexagrams above Director Fu's head shook and scattered. Director Fu's face turned pale, and blood spurted out from his eyes, ears, and nose. His whole person was teetering in the sky, his body swayed, and he fell directly from the air. Fall down. When the light of fire rushed in front of Director Fu, a red-robed deacon next to Director Fu rushed to Director Fu in a flash, picked up Director Fu on his back, and turned into a stream of light and rushed out of the Immortal City. The shape suddenly disappeared in the air. In the entire Immortal City, no one was a match for the Insect King. Even Manager Fu, who is a powerful person in the 8 Yang realm, is the same at this time. Although the difference between the 8 Yang realm and the 9 Yang realm seems to be only 1 level, the higher the level, even if it is only 1 level, the difference in strength is huge. In the entire Immortal City, no one can withstand the attack of the Insect King. Manager Fu was seriously injured and his life or death was unknown. He was rescued by a red-robed deacon. The summoners and masters who besieged the Insect King suffered heavy losses. The remaining red-robed deacons and black-robed disciples of the Xuanhuan sect in the city no longer had the fighting spirit. All disciples of the 10,000 God sect, quickly evacuate the Immortal City. A red-robed deacon roared before evacuating, and he also hurriedly evacuated. In fact, there is no need for the red-robed deacon to yell. At this moment, everyone in the city who can leave hastily fled. No one will stay stupidly. There is no place to stay on the ground. For a moment, the sky around the entire Immortal City was filled with summoners fleeing for their lives. In front of a strong man of this level, it is important to save one's life, and there is no shame in evacuating. Of course, Xiaopingan was also among the people fleeing for their lives, flying in the air. The scene in front of him made Xiaopingan feel that the summoners in the Immortal City were like a beehive that was taken away by firefighters with muskets. They were escaping from the hive. Those bees. This is the most dangerous side of the underground city of the Immortal City. The previous scenes are nothing compared to the scene in front of you. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 476. Boom boom. There was an earth-shattering loud noise behind him. Xiaopinggan turned around and saw the completely collapsed wall of the immortal city and the magma pouring in like a huge wave from behind the wall. The entire immortal city has now turned into a lake of magma. The ruins and remnants of collapsed buildings are being swallowed up and annihilated by the magma. When the magma cools, not even the scum can be seen of all the buildings left on the ground in the immortal city. The rolling magma engulfed the city wall, and in the blink of an eye, the wall of the immortal city disappeared before Xiaopinggan's eyes. The upper body of the golden insect king suddenly stood up in the blood-red firelight and under the boiling and rolling magma, and let out another roar of ang, as if celebrating and announcing that it had destroyed the undead city. The immortal city is over. But the battle was not over yet, because after Xiaopinggan saw the insect king shouting, black and red insects emerged from the magma underground in the immortal city, fanning two pairs of huge wings. He chased the fleeing summoners with murderous intent. The speed of those bugs is very fast, no slower than the summoners of the Six Yang realm, and some even feel a little faster. The patterns on those bugs are a bit strange. The black bugs have dark red patterns on their bodies, while the red bugs have blue patterns on their bodies. Those bugs have terrifying heads like man-eating lizards, and yellow eyes that are cold and cold. They are bloody, with long sharp claws on their bodies, and the spines on their backs protrude like saber teeth. The strong contrast in the colors of those bugs will give people the chilling and dangerous feeling only seen when seeing colorful poisonous snakes. Feel. Nima. It's impossible not to escape. Run quickly, those are evolved winged flame bugs. Xiaopinggan saw not far away, an inner disciple wearing a white robe. His face turned pale, he screamed in horror, and then he and the people around him moved towards flying in the distance. Evolved winged fire bug. What do you mean? Are these bugs more powerful than ordinary bugs? Everyone, don't just run away. Those winged flame bugs are very fast. If you simply run for your life, you will easily be caught up by those winged flame bugs. Everyone should use sniper spells while running to slow down the flying speed of those winged flame bugs. It is possible to escape. The protective power of the wings of those flying flame insects is weaker. Once damaged or injured, the flying speed will slow down. Let's come together. A black-robed summoner from the Wanshen sect while flying away, he roared, then waved his hand, summoning a black eagle and flying behind him. The eagle quickly met a red-winged flame insect in the air. Then the eagle's body burned and a violent explosion was made in the air. In the explosion, the one that flew to the front as expected, the flying winged flame bug was stopped by the explosion. It avoided the fireball and aftermath of the explosion, slowed down and was pulled away a little. The exploding eagle had done its job, and the summoner then summoned a second one to fly behind him. This is the first time Xiaopinggan has seen someone summon a summoned object that can self-destruct. Most of the summoners in the immortal city have some connection with the Wanshen sect, and there are no stupid people. At this time, it is when I am for everyone, and everyone is for me. Everyone saw the disciples in black robes taking action to delay those behind them. With the speed of the winged flame bugs, the other summoners who were fleeing for their lives were not idle either. While flying, they continued to use various spells and summonses to blast away at the bugs chasing behind them. Spells such as Fireball and Ice Cone are the most frequently used, because these spells consume less divine power to cast and can also allow the summoner to last longer in the battle. Seeing the dense insects behind him, Xiaopinggan also threw fireballs behind him, slowing down the flying speed of the winged flame insects. But the number of those flying winged flame bugs is too much. The number of those flying winged flame bugs that keep popping up from the ground far exceeds the number of these summoners who are escaping, and they fly at the fastest speed, in the blink of an eye. The flying winged flame bugs that caught up were almost all red-winged flame bugs with blue patterns on their bodies. According to the division of Zerg strength, if the Zerg body in the god-killing insect realm is red, it means that it has the strength of the 7 Sun realm, and blue means the 8 Sun realm. Ah! A scream sounded in the air. A white-robed summoner from the Xuanhuan sect, who was flying slightly slower, was chased from behind by a red-winged flame insect in the blink of an eye. When this summoner used a spell to snipe the winged flame bugs behind him, he seemed to cherish his divine power and only released a few ice cones. The effect was not very good. A red-winged flame bug avoided his attack. After several attacks, he dodged and quickly approached from the side and below. When the winged flame bug was still 50 or 60 meters away from the white-robed summoner, a stream of flames spurted out from the mouth of the winged flame bug. The white-robed summoner probably had no experience in dealing with winged flame bugs before. As soon as the protective water shield on his body was summoned, it was hit by the flames of the winged flame insect. The water shield was scattered by the flames, and he let out a scream, and most of his body was burned like coke. Just like that, he fell violently from the sky. Among the chasing winged flame bugs, 7 or 8 bugs immediately rushed towards the injured white-robed summoner. In the blink of an eye, the figure of the white-robed summoner was covered by a bunch of winged flame bugs. It stopped and fell apart all of a sudden. In the blink of an eye, 2 more summoners from the Sixth Sun realm who escaped were chased by red-winged flame bugs, and turned into 2 fireballs and fell from the sky. Xuanhuan discovered that the flying winged flame bugs were very intelligent. He had just released dozens of fireballs in the air to snipe at the flying winged flame bugs. However, in just a moment, he discovered that those flying winged flame bugs had already summarized a certain skill in the air. Use tactics to dodge fireballs and ice cones. Some flying flame bugs will predict the flight trajectories of fireballs and ice cones in the air in advance to dodge, and some flying winged flame bugs will line up in a column of 3 or 5 to reduce the number of other flying flame bugs. When the winged flame bugs are hit in the air, the one at the front can resist the attack from the front, while the flame bugs behind them rush over quickly. There are also flying winged flame bugs ahead. Suddenly, a somewhat frightened and desperate cry appeared from the flying summoner. Xuanhuan also saw it. Just in front of the huge underground cracks, there are large tracts of underground rocks that are turning red, softening, and turning into magma under high temperatures. Then, those flying winged flame bugs emerge from those underground cracks, shaking wings, quickly rushed towards the summoners fleeing the undead city. The summoner who rushed out of the undead city was actually surrounded by Zerg underground. The battle with the winged flame bugs was inevitable and broke out in an instant. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 477. At the critical moment, those flying winged flame bugs once again demonstrated their high intelligence. The moment the sky was filled with magical light, the red-winged flame bugs rushing from the front immediately turned towards the red-robed deacons of the Xuanhuan sect and the black-robed disciples of the Seven Sun realm. Rushed over. The winged flame bugs in the Seven Sun realm are encircling and suppressing the summoners in the Seven Sun realm, while the black-winged flame bugs are rushing towards Xuanhuan, the outer disciples and the white-robed disciples. Judging from the posture of the winged flame insect, it was completely as if it wanted to prevent any summoners who ran out of the undead city from escaping. This is also the first time Xuanhuan has personally experienced such a fierce battle scene since he became a summoner. As far as Xuanhuan saw the summoners who ran out of the undead city, their group numbered at least tens of thousands, and the number of winged flame bugs that emerged from the ground was almost 10,000. Tens of thousands. Suddenly, in the vast underground space, among the underground cracks, caves, and huge rock and soil interlayers, thousands of rays of light and thousands of flames erupted almost simultaneously within a few seconds. It lit up. No summoner who has reached this level is easy to bully. In terms of wisdom, human wisdom is 100 times stronger than those bugs. Everyone, stop hiding and use your skills. If we can't get out, we will all be doomed. A red-robed deacon of the Xuanhuan sect roared angrily, waved his hand, and with just a flash of light, tens of thousands of cavalry appeared on the ground. The cavalry galloped on their horses, surging forward like a wave on the ground, taking out their bows and arrows. flying axes, constantly shooting at the winged flames, and some cavalry raised their long lances and rushed towards the flying winged flame insects. The red-robed deacon himself suddenly flew down from the sky to the ground, disappeared, hid among thousands of troops, and rushed forward. These summoned sergeants are okay against ordinary opponents, but they are completely inadequate against the flying winged flame bugs that start at the lowest level of 6 suns. But when the red-robed deacon summoned these ordinary soldiers and horses, he did not want these soldiers and horses to kill the winged flame bugs. He just wanted these soldiers and horses to interfere with the sight of the winged flame bugs so that he could hide in them. Among them, it simultaneously delays and blocks the attack of the winged flame bugs, and accelerates the consumption of the winged flame bugs' abilities. The most powerful thing about these winged flame bugs is the long-range fire damage, but even if those winged flame bugs have gas oil wells in their stomachs, it is impossible. Squirt endlessly. Every time they attack, they are also consuming their own energy and it takes a certain amount of time. Sure enough, as soon as the thousands of cavalry were summoned, the few red-winged flame bugs that rushed in front were stunned. They suddenly lost the figure of the red-robed deacon and could no longer accurately lock the target. He could only instinctively open his mouth, and flames flew out. Suddenly, hundreds of running and charging cavalry turned into light and shadow and disappeared in the flames of the winged flame bugs. There were also several flying flame bugs that rushed into the cavalry team, and their wings passed through the team like blades. Each cavalryman and their horses were cut in half by the wings of the flying flame bugs, and disappeared into light. But there were too many cavalry, and it would take a certain amount of time to kill them all, not to mention that the cavalry were still running and the team had dispersed. The cavalry began to attack the winged flame bugs, but whether it was shooting arrows, charging with lances, or throwing axes, when the assassination and bombardment hit the winged flame bugs, they were unable to cause any damage to the winged flame bugs. Half a point of damage cannot break the physical defense of the winged flame insect. But there were too many densely packed cavalry in front of him. The red-robed deacon of the Seven Sun Realm was hiding among the cavalry, making the winged flame bugs suddenly lose their target of attack. The winged flame bugs also became manic and they went on a killing spree against those cavalrymen and chased them everywhere. The red-robed deacon set a good example for everyone, and also made everyone understand at once what tactics to choose to break through. Yes, on this occasion, if the summoners who ran out of the undead city wanted to rush out from the encirclement of the winged flame insects, in addition to having to be extremely strong, in this underground battlefield, the only way to escape was to escape. The better the chaos, the more chaos and people there are on the battlefield, the more scattered the attacks of the winged flame bugs will be, the greater the unnecessary consumption, and the greater the possibility that everyone can escape. No one is a fool. Everyone understood it at once. Amidst the rays of brilliance, cavalry teams came out one after another. The charging cavalry changed from 1 to 2, then to 10, to hundreds, and more. Infantry phalanxes came out one by one. The infantry spread out and ran on the rugged and complicated ground, even heading towards some inaccessible places. Giants came out one by one. The giants waved their big sticks and cleared away the obstacles on the road. They even jumped up and used their big sticks to blast those flying flame insects. Groups of catapult troops came out, one after another, throwing burning fireballs and stones at the flying winged flame insects in the sky. The archers came out, the infantry of Wei Wuzo came out, and the assassins who were flashing around like ghosts came out. Countless groups of cranes, bats, swallows, golden eagles, bone dragons, and blue loon appeared in the sky. These summoned animals and beasts were also flying around, disturbing the sight of the flying flame insects. Those hundreds of thousands of bats directly regarded the flying winged flame bugs as their targets, and flew around the heads of those flying winged flame bugs. Others summoned ice, snow, wind, rain, and black clouds. In just an instant, the sky and the ground were dazzled by endless summons. All kinds of strange beasts and monsters, everything you can think of and things you can't think of, have come out. All kinds of brilliance continued to emerge. For a time, countless summons appeared in the sky and underground, and countless armies and horses appeared in this dark underground abyss, and began to attack those flying flame insects, moving in all directions. Rush wherever you can and run away. Tens of thousands of summoners are breaking out, and even if each summoner summons at least 100 warriors, that's still an army of millions. In fact, even the lowest level 6 Sun Realm summoner can summon more than 100 warriors from the secret mandala at this time. Therefore, at this time, only the various summons appearing on the ground are summoned. Warriors, and soon there were 5 to 6 million people. For summoners in the 6 Yang realm, the number of divine power restored in the secret mandala every month is at least 3,000 to 4,000 points. No one will waste the opportunity to restore divine power every month. These restored divine powers are kept in the secret. Various characters are summoned in the mandala to save them. At this time, it just comes in handy. Yes, the more chaotic the better, and the more it can interfere with the attacking rhythm of those flying winged flame bugs, the better. So spectacular. Xiaoping'an flew in the sky, and in the blink of an eye, he discovered that there were countless more troops on the ground. They were densely packed and full of summoned legions charging and attacking. It felt like visiting the battlefield of an epic world war in ancient times. Indescribable. This kind of scene is also the scene where the summoner's various summoned objects are displayed. Xiaoping'an saw some summoners summoning musketeers and artillery, and some summoners summoned barbarian armies. On the flag of the summoned barbarian army was the word Meng. Could it be Menghuo? Xiaoping'an also saw the battle formation formed by the monks. On the battlefield, those monks were very powerful. They used Qinggong to run on the rock wall like flying. There was the roar of an engine in the sky. Xiaoping'an turned around and saw that someone had summoned several airships in the sky. The airships were in the shape of a spindle, and the yellow dragon flag was hung on the airships. It immediately reminded Xiaoping'an of the first airship built for China by Xuanhuan, the first airship manufacturer in Chinese history, that he had seen in the photo. Xuanhuan built the first airship in Chinese history, which happened at the end of the Qing dynasty and the beginning of the Republic of China. Xiaoping'an was really shocked when he saw the airship. The things that the World Pearl can summon are simply unimaginable. Seeing these summons, Xiaoping'an discovered that he did not have fused world beads, but actually there were many, many more. The extension of the historical timeline in the world beads may exceed his previous expectations, and it was by no means limited to ancient times. But this time is not the time to watch the excitement and study other people's world beads. Xiaoping'an himself is not idle either. With a wave of his hand, Xiaoping'an summoned 2,000 elite slave soldiers and 100 storm cavalry and threw them onto the battlefield to do their part. The elite slave soldiers summoned by Xiaoping'an were running, constantly throwing their spears at the flying flame insects, and the storm cavalry he summoned ran in all directions as soon as they were summoned, blending into the chaotic among the ground troops. Slaves are the lowest level military type that summoners can summon. Although their combat power is not high, they are cheap, easy to use, and can be summoned in large numbers. In addition to Xiaoping'an, there are many other summoners who have summoned a large number of slave soldiers. Therefore, if you look around casually on the ground, you will see that all kinds of slave soldiers are densely packed, no less than 5 or 6 million. It is simply comparable to the scene of the Battle of Makino. Even more spectacular, some summoners waved their hands and tens of thousands of slave soldiers ran out. Looking at the slave soldiers running around on the battlefield, Xiaoping'an himself quickly rushed to the ground. As soon as he used the secret method of beacon fire to play with the princes, he hid his figure and turned himself into a slave soldier, mixing among the countless armies, they rushed forward. Illusions and blinding techniques like beacon fire playing with the princes would be easily discovered by these high-level Zerg if used alone, and the effect would not be very good. And when the illusion of beacon fire plays on the princes is used in such thousands of troops, and oneself is transformed into a summoned object, the effect is completely different, and it can be completely confused. It is like a drop of water hiding in the sea, trying to surge forward. It will definitely not be easy to find that drop of water under the strong tide. Naturally, the winged flame bugs were unable to distinguish one by one among the millions of targets who was the incarnation of the summoner. Time and conditions did not allow it at all, so they could only frantically surround and kill those summons in the sky and on the ground. Moreover, I don't know when, and I don't know which great master who mastered the secret method actually summoned a large rolling thick fog underground. In the thick fog, thousands of troops and horses scattered to fight, and the birds scattered all over the sky. Faced with such a scene, with thick fog rolling everywhere and millions of targets scattered in the sky and on the ground, it was the turn of the flying flame bugs to be dumbfounded. For a moment, those flying winged flame bugs could only rush and kill the targets in front of them and within their sight. Xiaopingyan himself ran like a slave soldier on the ground. He performed the illusion of beacon fire to play with the princes. Disciples of the Xuanhuan sect in black, red, and white robes appeared one after another in the thick fog, heading towards the distance. Flying everywhere, attracting those flying winged flame insects, chasing everyone and chasing them in all directions. Only when those flying winged flame bugs caught up, a flame sprayed out, or sharp claws swept past, and the illusionary light and shadow dissipated, did the flying winged flame bugs realize that they had been fooled. Among summoners, Xiaopingyan is by no means the only one who has mastered illusion skills. So all of a sudden, more and more summoners appeared in the sky and began to fly everywhere, further distracting the attention of the winged flame bugs. Spells actually have no size. As long as they are used at the right time and occasion, they can exert unexpected power. The word chaos is not enough to describe the scene in the cracks of the underground cave in front of me. Millions of people and inhuman creatures are completely mixed together to fight here. All kinds of illusions and secrets are revealed. There is you in the middle, there is falsehood in the true, and there is the true in the false. Everyone will be confused, let alone those tens of thousands of insects. A scorching fire swept past Xiaopingyan. On the road ahead, a black flying winged flame insect fell. The black flying winged flame insect was already furious. With a sweep of its claws, 5 or 6 storm cavalry were swept away. The light dissipated, and its mouth opened. A line of fire swept across the ground, and 70 or 80 slave soldiers dissipated again. But the various summons in front of me still seemed endless. The elite slave soldier pointed the spear in his hand at the black-winged flame insect, as if it was tickling. The black-winged flame bug was angry, and another flame swept across it, and dozens more slave soldiers turned into light and disappeared. At this time, Xiaopingyan had already rushed to the black-winged flame insect with several elite slave soldiers. Xiaopingyan jumped up, and the 7-star sword whip suddenly appeared in his hand. Before he could wait for the black-winged flame insect, when the winged flame bug reacted, Xiaopingyan slashed with his sword. With such force, he cut off the head of the black-winged flame bug with one strike. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 478. When the 7-star sword whip slashed at the neck of the winged flame bug, Xiaopingyan finally understood why some people had said that this bug had evolved. Because the patterns on this flying winged flame insect can actually move. When the long sword was slashed, the dark red patterns on the originally black body of the winged flame insect seemed to feel danger all of a sudden. All those patterns swam over at once and concentrated on the winged flame insect. The neck area of this winged flame insect suddenly turned into a dark red like the winged flame insect in the Seven Suns realm. Transforming in an instant, this flying winged flame insect is like a chameleon. The moment the sword whip fell, Xiaopingyan discovered that the defensive power on the neck of this flying winged flame insect was already harder than the carapace of the mantis knife insects he killed before. If he used an ordinary Horcrux, this time, the damage to the flying flame insects may be reduced a lot. But unfortunately, what the flying winged flame insect encountered was the 7-star sword whip. The sharp edge of the 7-star sword whip could not be resisted by even the more defensive winged flame insect. Feeling the increasing resistance at the blade, Xiaopinggan just increased the strength of his hand and slashed down with the long sword. With great force, he chopped off the head of the flying winged flame insect. As soon as the winged flame insect was killed, the blood energy in his body was taken away by the 7-star sword whip. A stream of warm currents came from the hilt of the 7-star sword whip, which began to frantically replenish the blood and energy in Xiaopinggan's body. Originally, Xiaopinggan had been in seclusion in a secret room for many days, and his body was still a little weak and not in the best condition. Now, as the 7-star sword whip transmitted a burst of blood energy, Xiaopinggan suddenly felt that he was full. My physical condition suddenly returned to its best. Xiaopinggan waved his hand, and the fallen head and mutilated body of the winged flame insect were immediately taken into his secret mandala. The scale of the warehouse of the 6 Yang Realm secret mandala has undergone tremendous changes. The entire warehouse covers an area of hundreds of thousands of square meters and covers an area of hundreds of acres. It occupies a large area in the city of Mandala. It is completely trivial to put down the corpse of such an insect. The moment he just put away the body of the winged flame insect, the cold hair on the back of Xiaopinggan's neck exploded, and a warning sign suddenly appeared. Without even thinking about it, his body suddenly fell from the air to the ground. Before his hands landed, he said the word dig. The divine text was written by Xiaopinggan and fell on the ground. This divine inscription originally came from the world pearl used by Zheng Zhuanggong to dig into the ground to meet his mother. When the inscription fell to the ground, a big hole appeared on the ground, and Xiaopinggan suddenly burrowed into the ground. Almost at the moment when his figure had just submerged into the ground, 2 crisscrossing high-temperature flames swept across the sky and the ground. Hundreds of slave soldiers and more than a dozen storm cavalry were crisscrossing across them in an instant. The light dissipates in the high-temperature flame. 2 murderous black-winged flame bugs flew from the sky at the same time. One flying winged flame bug flew vertically down directly towards Xiaopinggan's head like a dive bomber, while the other black flying winged flame bug flew vertically down towards Xiaopinggan's head. The insects were close to the ground and attacked from below. If Xiaopinggan had not fallen into the ground in time just now, whether he flew up or landed on the ground, he would have been attacked by these 2 flying winged flame insects at the same time, and he would have been unable to avoid it. If you avoid it, you might get hit hard. These 2 winged flame bugs have obviously discovered Xiaopinggan. Xiaopinggan actually used such a weird method of burrowing into the ground to avoid the attacks of these 2 winged flame bugs. The star exceeded the expectations of these 2 winged flame bugs. The flying winged flame bug swooping down from the air was about to spit out another flame from the air at the hole where Xiaopinggan was hiding, roasting someone hiding in the hole, when a figure suddenly emerged from the ground fiercely. He came out, his body was like lightning, more like smoke. He flew into the air, grabbed the mandible of the winged flame insect, took out the fish intestine dagger he carried with him, and stabbed the winged flame insect directly in the mouth, cut off a large piece of flesh and blood on the tongue of the winged flame bug, causing blood to spurt out from the winged flame bug's mouth. The tongue is the weak point in the mouth of the winged flame insect. The winged flame bug was in pain and had to stop its plan to spit out flames. Its body rolled in the air and flew to the side. The black figure holding the winged flame bug's lower jaw suddenly turned over. He rode on the neck of the winged flame bug, and stabbed the winged flame bug's eyes with a dagger. Suddenly sparks flew everywhere, and the eyes of the winged flame bug were hit by fish intestine daggers. The thorn fell and knocked off a piece of transparent crystal the size of a fingernail. The winged flame insect was in pain again, and let out a strange roar from its mouth. It closed its eyes and twisted its body crazily in the air, trying to throw away the summoned character riding on its neck, but it was useless. The black shadow assassin riding on the neck of the winged flame bug still stabbed the winged flame bug into the eyes one after another. At the same time, his body flashed quickly in the air, and he grabbed the neck of the winged flame bug with one hand. The scales on the body are raised, as if performing acrobatics, with a ghostly figure, dodging the attack of the two front claws of the winged flame insect, and the whole body is dancing near the neck and head of the winged flame insect, twisting and making all kinds of incredibly difficult movements, while constantly stabbing the winged flame bug's eyes with a dagger. He was completely consumed by the winged flame bug. This black shadow is the Chen-Xing assassin summoned by Xiaoping'an. In the midst of the fight between the sinking star assassin and the flying winged flame insect, the bodies of one person and one insect twisted and rolled in the air, disappeared into the thick fog in the blink of an eye, and flew away. At the same time, the winged flame insect that flew close to the ground discovered that Xiaoping'an had submerged into the ground 50 meters away from the hole where he was hiding. A hole suddenly appeared on the ground. The figure just now appeared from the ground. When it came out again, the flying winged flame insect quickly flew close to the ground without even thinking about it. It opened its mouth and another firelight swept across it. Xiaoping'an, who had emerged from the ground, was swept away by the firelight and disappeared directly. It's another illusion from Feng Guo opera. By the time the winged flame bug realized something was wrong, it was already too late. On the ground where the winged flame bug had flown, another head suddenly appeared. Xiaoping'an's figure jumped out of the hole. The seven-star sword whip in his hand was inserted into the abdomen of the winged flame insect. The long sword had no handle. Xiaoping'an stood on the ground with the sword in both hands like a nail. The body of the flying flame insect that rushed quickly was directly cut open from the abdomen by the giant sword in Xiaoping'an's hand, a bloody and terrifying hole several feet deep. The wound extended all the way to where its tail was. Ouch! In a painful cry, the flying flame insect crashed to the ground, like a plane that failed to land, pushing out a bloody stone ditch more than 50 meters long on the ground. Gravel splashed, and in an instant kill. The wound was too big, even for a winged flame insect. The wound was fatal. Xiaoping'an's figure rushed to the side of the winged flame insect, put away the body of the winged flame insect, and with a wave of his hand, another 300 elite slave soldiers were summoned and began to continue running and charging on the ground. His figure once again transformed into an ordinary slave soldier, blending in among the slave soldiers, and the technique of beacon fire playing with the princes once again created an illusion of him, which disappeared into the thick fog in the sky, flying towards the distance. Sure enough, another winged flame insect was fooled and chased after the illusion of beacon fire playing with the princes. When the winged flame insect caught up with Xiaoping'an's illusion, he grabbed it and tore it to pieces, only to realize that he had been fooled. Then he flew back, and the ground with a radius of 100 miles was full of running elite slave soldiers. Those elite slave soldiers were everywhere. There are hundreds of thousands of them. It is impossible to tell where the elite slave soldiers who were here just now have gone. The surrounding slave soldiers saw the winged flame insect falling, and dozens of them flew over with spears, stabbing the body of the winged flame insect behind. There was a clanking sound, and not a single hair fell off. The summoned slave soldiers rushed towards the winged flame bug without fear of death and continued to attack. The winged flame bug was enraged and a burst of flames spurted out. Dozens of elite slave soldiers turned into light and shadow and disappeared. In this moment, Xiaoping'an had already run far away. Another black-winged flame insect flew close to the ground, its vibrating wings cutting through the air like high-speed blades. Hundreds of slave soldiers, war figurines, and 7 or 8 knights were just like this. Dissipated. As an elite slave soldier, Xiaoping'an just raised the spear in his hand. In a quick flash, the winged flame insect thought it was a slave soldier, so its wings flew past him steadily. Xiaoping'an was fine, but when the wings of the flying flame insect passed over the spear in Xiaoping'an's hand, he realized that the spear was not a spear, but a terrifying 7-star sword whip. The spear was not broken, but what was broken was the wings of a flying fire bug. The wings of the flying winged flame bug are actually less protective. The moment it crossed the spear, the two pairs of wings on one side of the flying winged flame bug were instantly removed by the Horcrux in Xiaoping'an's hand, who was pretending to be a pig to eat the tiger. When he was born, it was like he was bumping into the 7-star sword whip. The unbalanced winged flame bug hit the ground again. Before the flying flame bug could get up again, Xiaoping'an's figure had already arrived like flying. "Lie down!" Xiaoping'an roared, raised a big foot, and stepped directly on the head of the winged flame insect, pulling the head of the winged flame insect that just wanted to raise its head. It collapsed heavily into the rocks beneath him, and its strength was frightening. The winged flame bug was still trying to struggle, but Xiaoping'an's giant sword had been inserted directly into the winged flame bug's head, directly pinning the winged flame bug to the ground, killing it instantly. The third one. Xiaoping'an put away the body of the 7-star winged flame bug and repeated his trick again, creating an illusion of himself and running to the side to attract the attention of other winged flame bugs who saw what was going on here, while he himself hid when the elite slave soldiers and slave soldiers behind him ran over. He pretended to be an elite slave soldier, blended in with the hundreds of thousands of elite slave soldiers around him, and rushed forward. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 479. In this chaotic battle situation, the power of the 7-star sword whip, as a top-level Horcrux, was fully demonstrated. Although the flying winged flame bugs are more difficult to deal with than the mantis bugs, and the body defense of the black flying winged flame bugs is almost comparable to that of the Zerg in the 7 Sun realm, as long as Xiaoping'an puts some force on his hand, the 7-star sword whip will still be overwhelming. The black flying winged flame insect was slashed by the sword. After Xiaoping'an pretended to be a pig and eat a tiger and killed 5 flying flame bugs, he had almost just received the 5th black flying winged flame bug into the secret mandala, a red flying wing with faint blue stripes. The fire bug suddenly broke through the thick fog in front and appeared in front of Xiaoping'an, staring at Xiaoping'an with cold and angry golden eyes, filled with murderous intent. Xiaoping'an suddenly felt that he was being targeted. The red-winged flame insect is equivalent to the summoner of the 7 Suns realm. Without thinking, Xiaoping'an summoned 200 more elite slave soldiers, and used the illusion of beacon fire to trick the princes, releasing an illusion of his own escape, while he himself was mixed in with those elite slave soldiers, heading towards the surroundings. Run around to distract the fire bugs. Xiaoping'an has used this trick several times before, and it works very well. But this time, it failed. The dark red-winged flame bug just thrust one of its forelimbs into the ground. With a loud boom, a circle of fire spread out from the ground, and the rolling flames swept like ripples. Passing over the ground, like a swift and violent shockwave, the elite slave soldiers within 100 meters, as well as some of the soldiers summoned by other summoners and other summoned objects, all turned into light and dissipated in the firelight, including just now the illusion created by illusion suddenly dissipated under the impact of the fire, and the surrounding fog was swept away. Seeing the fire rushing towards him, Xiaoping'an instantly cast a water shield around his body to offset the shockwave of the fire. At this time, all the surrounding summons were cleared away. Xiaoping'an, who was hidden among these summons, was suddenly exposed as if he stood out from the crowd, and the illusion was suddenly useless. The red-winged flame insect flapped its wings and rushed towards Xiaoping'an. Its wings cut through the air, making a buzzing and vibrating sound in the air. The air around him trembled, making people dizzy. The two front claws of the winged flame insect seemed to be grabbing directly at Xiaoping'an's head and chest. Damn it! This red flying winged flame insect is really powerful. Xiaoping'an had never competed with a red-winged flame bug before. He also wanted to test how powerful the red-winged flame bug was. When he saw the red-winged flame bug rushing towards him, Xiaopinggan did not run away. Instead of retreating, he advanced directly towards the red-winged flame insect. One person and one insect, at this time, like two galloping knights charging and dueling, no one flinched, and in an instant, they collided head-on. At the moment when the two sides met, Xiaopinggan's figure suddenly lowered, avoiding the two front paws that were swept away. The sharp wind was like two sharp guillotines, sweeping directly against Xiaopinggan's nose and head. The blow made Xiaopinggan's hair almost stand on end, and the skin on his face hurt. Xiaopinggan made a sliding shovel, tilted his body, and slid under the winged flame insect close to the ground, and then used the 7-star sword whip in his hand to slash towards the abdomen of the red-winged flame insect. The moment the sword tip touched the abdomen of the winged flame insect, the faint blue pattern on the winged flame insect suddenly swam over and appeared on the abdomen. The 7-star sword whip hit the faint blue pattern. The sword shook, but it couldn't penetrate. This surprised Xiaopinggan. He exerted force on his hand, but still couldn't penetrate. In just a few tenths of a second, the 7-star sword whip came into close contact with the belly of the winged flame insect, making a harsh friction sound like metal scraping, and flashed away with a first-class dazzling firelight. Could it be that the blue pattern represents the Zerg's defense power in the 8th Sun realm? It's strong, too strong. Xiaopinggan's hand was numb after they had just exchanged a move. He finally knew how powerful this evolved flying winged flame insect from the 7th Sun realm was, because he found that his 7-star sword whip could not break through it at all. With the body defense of the red-winged flame insect, how can we fight such a battle? He only deserves to be beaten. So after sliding under the belly of the flying winged flame insect, Xiaopinggan flew directly up without even thinking about it, flying towards a huge underground crack hanging down from the sky in the distance, and at the same time used it again. The illusion technique suddenly created 5 or 6 illusions exactly like his own, flying in different directions around him. At this point in the battle, many summoners have already broken through the siege of the winged flame bugs and left from different directions. The flying winged flame bug chased after Xiaopinggan from behind, and it was actually faster than Xiaopinggan. It completely ignored the illusion Xiaopinggan created and directly chased Xiaopinggan closely, locking onto Xiaopinggan's true body. Damn it! Xiaopinggan's heart tightened, and without even turning his head, he threw 5 or 6 fireballs and 7 or 8 ice picks behind him, trying to slow down the winged flame insect. Regarding these attacks, Xiaopinggan found that the flying winged flame bug didn't care at all, and hit it head-on, letting the fireball and ice pick hit its head, smashing the ice pick into pieces, and its speed barely changed. Suddenly, Xiaopinggan's heart tightened, and his body swerved to the side without thinking. A fire with a terrifyingly high temperature rubbed Xiaopinggan's body forward. Even though he was several meters away, the high temperature of the fire still made Xiaopinggan smell the burnt smell of his own hair. At this moment, a large group of bats suddenly flew from the thick fog, flying around the head of the flying flame insect, chirping, like a piece of black cloth, disturbing the flying wing. The sight of the flame bug also grabbed the eyes of the winged flame bug, which made the winged flame bug furious. It kept waving its claws and spitting out flames, burning the bats until they disappeared. The speed could not help but be slightly slowing down a little. Xiaopinggan seized the opportunity and suddenly opened some distance. In the huge underground gap, Xiaopinggan soared into the sky like a rocket, flying quickly upward. On both sides of the underground gap, there were rocks like mountain walls. Occasionally, some magma would flow from the rocks in those gaps. It flowed out and fell from the sky, forming some magma waterfalls. When we got here, we had flown out of the dense fog area, and everything around us became clear. After the red-winged flame insect got rid of the bats, it caught up with them in the blink of an eye, getting closer and closer. Xiaopinggan released spell attacks behind him, and the flying winged flame insect showed no sign of weakness. It attacked Xiaopinggan with streaks of flames. One person and one insect, like a fighter jet chasing in this huge underground fissure, flying at high speed. A fight broke out in flight. Xiaoping's attacks, including lightning and sky-burning Suzaku, were completely immune to the flying winged flame insect. However, for Xiaoping, as long as it touched the winged flame insect, it would result in serious injury or death. Xuanhuan belongs to water, so it should be able to restrain the flying flame bugs in nature, but there is no way to summon them in such a high-speed flying environment. This is a completely unequal battle. But in such a battle, Xiaoping also made a discovery. He found that when his attack fell on the winged flame insect, the winged flame insect seemed to be able to withstand the attack completely, but every time, the power of the attack was, the moment it explodes, the wings of the flying flame insect will instantly retract back to its armpits. Because the speed of both parties is very fast, the winged flame bug contracts and expands its wings in an instant, so it seems that the winged flame bug has been flying without any scruples. Those wings are one of the weaknesses of the winged flame bug. With this discovery, Xiaoping's spirit was shaken, and he suddenly thought of a way to escape the pursuit of this flying winged flame insect. You can try it. Just do it. With this thought in his mind, Xiaoping waved his hand, and more than a dozen ice picks were shot out behind him. Those ice cones are real, but there are some falsehoods in the truth. One of the ice cones is different from the others. The ice cone contains his other summoning spells. Sure enough, the winged flame insect still ignored the bombardment of these ice picks, and the ice picks exploded under its claws. But when the seventh ice cone exploded, 7 or 8 summoned nets spread out from behind the exploding ice cone in an instant, and immediately wrapped around the wings of the flying flame insect. The 2 pairs of wings of the flying flame insect were entangled at once. Seeing that the flying winged flame insect suddenly veered away, like a crashed plane, it hit the rock wall next to it, knocking out a big hole in the rock wall, and countless rubbles flew down. Xiaoping laughed. The snare technique is very simple. It is the first summoning technique that Xiaoping mastered. But when used in the right place and at the right time, it can instantly paralyze the flight ability of the difficult winged flame insect. The winged flame insect, which was bound by the net technique and greatly affected by the vibration and stretch of its wings, was so angry that it kept tearing at the nets wrapped around its wings with its claws, and let out bursts of angry roars from its mouth. Before the wings of the flying flame insect broke free from the snare technique, Xiaoping had already accelerated, seizing the opportunity, and flew away quickly. After being far away, he used illusion to cover his body shape, changed the flight path, and finally escaped from the pursuit of the flying winged flame bugs. A few hours later, Xiaoping flew out of the huge underground passage entrance into the immortal city and saw the blue sky and sea again. Damn, he finally ran out. Xiaoping felt like he was surviving a disaster. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 480. The winged flame bugs underground did not catch up after the pursuit reached a certain level. In the subsequent process, Xiaoping never encountered a single winged flame bug. Over the island at the underground entrance to the undead city, there were almost 2,000 to 3,000 summoners gathered at this moment. Almost half of these summoners had just escaped from the undead city. There were also 2 red deacons in the sky. Among them, one of them was Liang Tian, who also ran out, and there were many other black-robed disciples and white-robed disciples. There were also many summoners who were in the immortal sea. When they saw some movement here, they flew over to watch the excitement. This caused more and more summoners to appear on the island. Ha, another one came out. He's really lucky. Seeing Xiaoping flying out of the ground, some of the summoners who were watching exclaimed. The sea breeze blew, and the surrounding sounds reached Xiaoping's ears. The destruction of the immortal city of the 10,000 God sect was indeed a big event for the summoners gathered in the immortal sea at the moment, but for those watching the excitement, they did not think it was a big deal, it just felt very sudden. The Abyss Insect King is very strong, but he is only in the Nine Yang realm. There are no strong men in the Nine Yang realm in the immortal city of the 10,000 gods sect, but in the immortal sea, there is more than one strong human being in the Nine Yang realm. Of course, this does not mean that the Huanshen sect is weak, but that the immortal city is just a small branch of the Huanshen sect in the immortal sea. It is usually managed by the head of the 8 Yang realm, and there are no elders in charge. The Huanshen sect does not control the 9. The strong men from the Yang realm were just sent to guard, so they were taken advantage of by the Abyss Insect King this time. If the 10,000 god sect had elders from the 9 Yang realm stationed in the immortal city, it is hard to say what the situation in the immortal city would be like at this moment. Standing in the void, he found that the eyes of the people around him were focused on him. It didn't feel good to be the center of attention. Xiaopingyan looked around, and quickly flew into the crowd next to him, without leaving in a hurry. Also keep watching here. The Abyss Insect King raided the immortal city. I heard that the immortal city is finished. I wonder what the Abyss Fortress of the Huanshen sect is like. The Abyss Fortress of the 10,000 god sect is protected by a top-notch formation. Even the Abyss Insect King can't help it. It should be able to protect itself. If the Abyss Fortress was so easy to capture, the Insect King would have directly attacked the fortress. There is no need to beat around the bush from underground. Go and raid the immortal city. The crowd in the sky was talking a lot. The Abyss Insect King has not appeared for many years. I didn't expect that he would come out this time. Those flying winged flame bugs should have a lot of good boundary beads on them. How about we brothers go down and make a fortune, kill a few flying winged flame bugs, and see if we can get some boundary beads. The situation underground is still unknown. Didn't you see that all the disciples of the Huanshen sect have come out? I don't know how many insects have come out of the abyss. Let's take a look at the situation first. There were sounds from the crowd watching all around. Suddenly, a white-robed disciple of the Huanshen sect who still smelled of sulfur and gunpowder smoke flew to Xiaopingyan and looked at Xiaopingyan. Did this brother also run away from the undead city? Yes, Xiaopingyan nodded. Are you an outer disciple of the Huanshen sect? Yeah, Xiaopingyan nodded. Deacon Liangtian has something to ask you. Xiaopingyan didn't know what Liangtian was going to do, but he had a good impression of Liangtian. He also saw where Liangtian was. Many outer disciples who flew out from the underground were called over. Liangtian and another the red-robed deacon asked a few questions one by one, and some of the outer disciples of the Huanshen sect left. Liangtian did not embarrass them. Xiaopingyan flew directly to Liangtian following the white-robed disciple. Have you met Deacon Liang? Xiaopingyan saluted Liangtian. His voice at this moment naturally changed, and Liangtian couldn't hear it. What's your name? You're also a disciple of the Huanshen section. I think you're a bit unfamiliar. Liangtian's eyes turned to Xiaopingyan's face and asked. My name is Zhang Tai. I have just joined the 10,000 god sect less than a month ago, and I have only been in the immortal city for a few days. How can I contribute anything to the sect? Xiaopingyan said directly. Have you seen any other deacons down there before? No, Xiaopingyan shook his head. Where is the Zerg army? Xiaopingyan also shook his head. Did you see anyone else? The summoners who escaped from the undead city are either returning to the surface, or they are currently looking for a place to hide in the maze-like underground world to avoid those flying fire bugs. Some of them are fleeing towards the Abyss Fortress, hoping to stay in the fortress. Find refuge. Before breaking through on the battlefield, Xiaopingyan saw that different summoners' final choices were different, so he chose to return to the ground first. Liangtian asked Xiaopingyan several questions one after another, and Xiaopingyan answered them all. It seems that Liangtian wants to know more about the underground information in more detail. Liangtian finally said to Xiaopingyan, the disaster that the immortal city suffered this time was indeed unexpected. However, when we left the immortal city, several of our deacons had already contacted the Abyss Fortress. The fortress allowed us to break out and return first. On the ground, the Xuanhuan sect already knows what happened in the Immortal City. Elders will come to deal with it. There is no need to panic. You are an outer disciple of the Xuanhuan section. The sect does not make many demands on you. During these days, you are free to move around. If you want to come to us, you can come to Piao Miao Mountain on Yun Island, which is one of the strongholds of the Xuanhuan sect in the Immortal Sea. Okay, I understand, thank you very much, good deacon. Xiaoping'an was just an outer disciple, and Liang Tian didn't pay much attention to it. After just a few brief explanations, there was no problem. Xiaoping'an flew aside and observed silently. Summoners from the Undying City continued to fly out of the underground entrance, and there were quite a few of them. Xiaoping'an looked at it. In the previous battle where he was surrounded by the winged flame bugs, the winged flame bugs' plot should be it was a failure. Not many summoners fell. Everyone showed their own abilities, and most of them should have escaped. A few hours later, as the sky grew dark, 2 more red-robed deacons flew out from below with a group of white-robed disciples and hundreds of outer disciples, and quickly joined Liang Tian and others. Several red-robed deacons gathered together and discussed in a low voice. They did not continue to wait here. Instead, they left a black-robed disciple and 5 white-robed disciples to guard the entrance of the cave. Several red-robed deacons led the white-robed and black-robed disciples of the Xuanhuan sect, as well as a bunch of outer disciples, left here and flew towards the south. There were probably more than 2,000 people who left. Xiaoping'an also left with the team. At this time, it would be safer to follow a large group of people, and it would be better than rushing alone. Among the people watching the excitement at the entrance and exit, there were all kinds of people, and there might be people with ulterior motives who were ready to take advantage of others' danger. Flying over the vast sea with the sea breeze blowing, Xiaoping'an suddenly remembered his clone, Luoan, who was still in Paris. He left too hastily before and had no time to make any preparations. As soon as the spirit body left the body would fall into a deep sleep, just like a vegetative person. The body's consumption was also normal, and there was no self-control. Ability to protect. He fainted in Emily's home. He didn't know what Emily would do to him. If Emily buried him or threw him on the street, the clone would be finished. Xiaoping'an was a little worried, but at this time, it was useless to worry. He could only settle his affairs first. The worst-case scenario was that his previous clone would be damaged and he would die, and all his previous efforts would be in vain. The worst-case scenario is to find another clone when you return to the spirit world. After flying in the air for 5 or 6 hours, a huge island appeared on the horizon ahead. It was a large coconut-shaped island with an area of almost 70,000 to 80,000 square kilometers. The island was very lively, and the sky was full of summoners flying around. There seemed to be 2 large-scale cities on the island, one in the south. One north is located at the north and south ends of the island. Viewed from the air at night, the north and south ends of the island are brightly lit and the most densely populated. In the middle of the island is a series of towering mountains, and some peaks seem to be active volcanoes, which are still emitting thick black smoke. You can see magma flowing down from the volcano and rolling into the sea water. When they arrived here, Liang Tian and the others flew towards the mountain peak in the middle of the island, and Xiaoping'an separated from the large army. Many outer disciples in the team also separated at this time. Everyone understands that when they arrive at Piao Miao Mountain, the outer disciples will not be able to enjoy many rights within the sect and will be inferior to others in every aspect. I am afraid they will not feel comfortable. Therefore, it is better to find a place to stay on the island, at least. You can be more free. If you really save enough insect crystals and see the reaction of the Xuanhuan sect, it won't be too late to go to Piao Miao Mountain. Xiaoping'an and some outer disciples of the Xuanhuan sect were divided into 2 parts. One part flew towards the city on the south side of the island, and the other part flew towards the city on the north side of the island. Xiaopinggan was nearby and headed towards Yundao. Fly to the city in the north. In a short time, Xiaopinggan landed on a brightly lit street in the city. There are too many people here, more than 10 times more than in the immortal city. The streets are brightly lit and crowded with pedestrians. There is a lively atmosphere. There are people selling everything. Moreover, the people here are not as single as the immortal city. Look, the people on this street come from all walks of life, and there are even sharks walking around the city arrogantly. Many sharks are selling pearls from the bottom of the sea, medicines, and other things. Xiaopingyan couldn't help but feel dazed by the huge contrast when he came from the destroyed immortal city to such a lively place. Fortune-telling and fortune-telling, I am a fool. Come to me, Lu Bangxian, for only 100 gold coins. Xiaopingyan was looking at the bustling street. Suddenly, a familiar voice penetrated his ears. He turned his head and saw that he was wearing a Scion summoner's robe and carrying a whisk, holding a bamboo pole in his right hand. Lu Yizan, who was carrying a fortune-telling sign on the bamboo pole, was walking away from a distance while shouting. Xiaopingyan was slightly startled. What a coincidence that he met this guy here again. However, this is not what surprised Xiaopingyan. What surprised Xiaopingyan even more and even made his heart tense was that he also saw people from the blood demon cult here.